yet. Klay Thompson has unfollowed the Warriors on Instagram. He has removed some Warriors-related content, and it just makes you wonder, right? It makes you wonder what Klay is thinking, what the Warriors have said, what they've not said. And to me, there's three things going on here. Three things this offseason with Klay Thompson. Obviously, there's money, there's role, and there's respect. I think those are and which one is the most important? I know, most would say it's money, and it probably is. But I think what his role would be is a big issue. And then the respect comes in the form of how are you being prioritized? So not just we want you, but don't say to Klay, we want you, but we got about 6 other irons in the fire. Got to see how that all shakes out first, Klay. And in fact, Anthony Slater was on our station, was on with the roast on Wednesday and talked about Klay not feeling like he's being prioritized.
I mean, all the way up until now, it's not necessarily that Klay Thompson has been priority number one. Locking down his future is not necessarily priority one for the Warriors. And you can, from a cold-hearted business perspective, I think you can understand that from the Warriors side. But, Klay Thompson is Klay Thompson. And, he has pride in what he's built with the Warriors, who he still is in the league, what his statistical resume still says he is. And I think there's a fair, you want to be prioritized. And I don't think necessarily, the Warriors management all the way up into the top has from day one of this, they did with other people over the last couple of years, said, we have to do whatever it takes to make sure you're here long term.
Okay. So, that's true. It's not even just about if they're saying that to him now. I bet Klay is thinking you've essentially been saying that to me all year. As you pointed out, could have signed him any day.
Right.
Any day between today and, all year. Any day. And they never did.
Well, they reportedly offered him 2 years and $48 million,
yep,
which he turned down. And I would not be surprised if the offer that they allegedly made back in, November? I would not be surprised if the offer that they're making now isn't less or about the same offer that they made there. I don't think, honestly, and maybe they haven't even made him an offer.
I think that's
because as you're mentioning, and you're using the P word, priority, and if I am in Mike Dunleavy's spot and I'm Joe Lacob and I look at this past year, we were a 10 seed, and I am stuck with Draymond Green for 3 more years, love him or hate him, and I love him when he is available and he plays like Draymond can. He's unique. I got Steph for 2 more. I got Wiggins for 3, and I'm a 10 seed. How do I get from where we were at the end of April when Sacramento ran us out of their building in the play-in tournament? How do I get from there back to where I want to be, which is a playoff team, a top 6 seed, a team that can generate playoff revenue and maybe go on a run, quote unquote? Well, I don't get there by just giving Klay Thompson $25 million a year right now. That doesn't make you go from a 10 seed to being a real player. So I get why their priorities are not Klay Thompson.
100%. If they offered him 2 years and 48 before the season, there was a big piece of info that they did not have at that time. They didn't even make the playoffs.
Right.
That's a tree shaker. That's
Schmidt. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's probably
back
pretty
to Sack. Yeah.
Let's go to Rich in Fremont. Hey, Rich, Willard and Dibbs.
Hey, guys, thanks for taking my call. I'm like this about it, man. Say it isn't so. You know what I mean? It's like, you're killing me over here. I don't even really know how to, respond to this. But, yeah, it appears like he's probably going to go, okay? But at the same time, as a Warrior fan, you get up every day and you go to work and you do your job and you try to do the best possible way you know how, right, and efficiency as you can. But eventually over time, your boss and you will have a powwow, and it won't be good over time, okay? And then eventually you have to go elsewhere. That's just the way life is. And so I think that's what's happening with Klay right now. I think he kind of looks around and says, you know what? It's time for me to go, okay? Because I want more money. I want to be more of, the face or close to the face of the franchise. I can't do that here. And I got other offers waiting for me. And you know what? Those offers are looking good.
Well,
so, yeah, I think he's gone, and I'm sorry that he is.
Rich, thanks. Yeah, I get it. I just think a few things here. This relationship was already in a really, really tough spot. Klay is a thinker. Klay gets offended. If Klay was offended that Draymond brought up his contract signing at the hospital, if he was offended that even became a thing that the Warriors addressed, then this relationship was going to be in a really, really tough spot to begin with. I'd actually predict that Klay at some point may regret leaving the Warriors, but I also get it. This relationship is just, there's too many hurt feelings, and then now there's the reality that the Warriors are like, we need to operate. We need to operate at a higher level, and the rules make it so it's really hard for us to do that while you're still here. And then here's the brutal reality. This is what I hate, and I'll mostly save this for after he leaves. But for every one of you out there that's going, oh my gosh, it's time. We need to light candles, and let's gather so that we can be together because Klay is gone. The only reason, and I know he's a legend and he always will be, the only reason you feel that way is because you haven't been offered his replacement yet. Now, I can't make many comparisons to Klay Thompson because there's not that many Warriors who have done what he's done. But Harrison Barnes had just won a championship. Andrew Bogut had just won a championship. These were really good players on the Warriors. I still don't even know if anybody noticed that they left when they signed Kevin Durant because it all came on the same day. If Klay Thompson were leaving, but like Warrior fan was being offered something else in return, and you could see that and feel it, I'd argue that you will react to this very, very differently.
Let's say it's a part of a sign and trade.
Yeah.
And you get back Brandon Ingram or Jimmy Butler. And I don't think that they're getting either of those guys, but just as a name, if they get a name back, it certainly will lessen the blow. Like you said, the Kevin Durant piece, I had forgotten that Andrew Bogut was kind of cleared out to make way financially for Kevin Durant. And he was not a forever Warrior like Klay Thompson.
No, but like
this one's going to hurt no matter what.
Sure.
But it will be lessened if there's another piece that comes back immediately.
And if you're a Niner fan, you've been through this already 12 times, especially if you're of a certain age. Some of us are old enough to remember Steve Young replacing Joe Montana, or Terrell Owens replacing Jerry Rice. Like, we do this, and you're okay with it, and it stinks, and then they come, and then they retire and they come back. Now, I don't know if we'll ever see Klay again because he might just go on a boat trip around the world for the rest of his life. You know what I mean? But Jerry Rice leaves, puts on a bunch of other uniforms, plays for the whole AFC West, and then years later is at Levi Stadium in a suit running around before every game.
Right.
And it's fine. It's fine. It'll be okay. We just don't know all the other pieces of the puzzle yet.
Right.
So,
and part of it too is if he goes out and he signs for, let's say he gets 2 years and $24 million a year with Orlando.
With someone else.
Then it's going to be a thing.
Well, that's what like you're bringing something up, which is where my mind, like, how do the Warriors exit this?
Yeah.
And not look cruel? I think that matters to the Warriors.
And I think it matters to fans too.
Yeah.
I think if Klay goes out and he gets 3 years and $75 million, then you could say, all right, good for you, Klay. I don't think that the Warriors are offering 3 years. Maybe they are. I don't think that they're offering 75 over 3. And if they are, then you've got a whole different conversation.
Well, and that's why today, to me, it feels like such a big deal. This is a bad start to the whole, like, let's part calmly. Let's be friends. This is a bad start. Instagram scrubbing is not what the Warriors want this to look like, I would argue. BPA, Brian in Palo Alto with Willard and Dibbs. Hey, B, what's up?
Hey, what's going on?
BPA.
I
think it's
just hanging out.
It's for the best. It's time, you know. I think Klay wants to be prioritized based on a player he used to be, not the player he is. And if the Warriors were to say our number one priority this offseason is Klay Thompson, then they're really not serious about winning, because they need reliable players next to Steph. And I would ask you guys, is Klay a reliable player anymore? Is that a guy that you can hang your hat on, is going to be there next to Steph, performing at a high level when the lights are brightest? He used to be, but the evidence has been pretty clear for several years now. He hasn't been. And so for me, he bet on himself as far as his future with the Warriors, and he didn't deliver when the lights were brightest. So, you need to prioritize multiple things before Klay. And I would say be careful what you wish for, Klay, right? Because you go sign for 2 and 50 in Orlando, and you go 6 for 24 in an elimination game, you're going to get hammered 1,000 times worse than you would here.
I don't know about that, BPA. Like, I get what you're saying, and I think there's a lot of fair points in there. I've never met someone who's an Orlando Magic fan. I actually think that what you just brought up is a piece to this puzzle, but in the opposite way. I don't think Klay would get hammered anywhere else as much as he gets hammered here. And the reason for that is we rip Klay and BPA just did it. We rip Klay for comparing himself to his former self, but so do we. So do we. That's why we're thinking about him the way that we do. Klay Thompson was a solid basketball player last year. Nowhere near as good as he used to be. And that's the problem. We see Klay through the lens of who he's always been. And therefore, when he's not that player, we take shots at him. The rest of the NBA is not going to do that.
They will if he goes 0 for 9 in a elimination game.
Not in Orlando. They will if it's Philly or New York.
Yeah.
But they would do that to Santa Claus or anybody, no matter what they're making.
Yeah.
So, that's just what they do. Orlando's not getting mad at Klay. They're not comparing him to who he was when he was 26. They're just like, we're in Florida. We're in the playoffs.
Yeah, we've never been that good.
Klay struggled tonight. Okay. I think that's a big piece of this. It's almost like what Steve Kerr said about himself a couple of weeks ago. Right now, the Warriors dignitaries at times are a victim of their own history and success. It's just too great. There's too much of it. It's like any relationship. When you get to year 10 and then 20 and then 30, it's like, good Lord, we got a lot of taking a lot of bullets for each other.
Well, I used to be funny. You used to think I was so funny. And I used to think you were so attractive. And it's like,
now I want to wring your neck.
Seriously. You again? That same line of humor? Yeah, it makes it a little tough.
That's what's going on
Especially when you set the bar as high as they set it. And so I do think you're right about them comparing themselves, and we compare them to what we remember them being. But Brian in Palo Alto is exactly right about the Warriors and Klay Thompson. If you bring Klay back, I think you're resigning yourself to basically saying we don't even think we can be a championship team again. And you could look at Draymond's absence last year, and you could say we were, 3 wins away from being the 6th seed, and you can try to sell me that line all you want. I'm not buying it. And I do think if you bring Klay back, no matter what the salary is, you're just doomed to repeat the kind of year you had last year.
Well, I actually think there's a way, but and the salary is not even what I'm thinking about. Like, Klay Thompson can shoot, and the Warriors need shooters.
Yeah.
So if you were going to just play 22 minutes off the bench, that'd be amazing. I don't think he wants to do that.
No.
And he certainly doesn't want to make the salary that is commensurate with that role. And again, that's why, for me, I also blame the NBA. I think it's stupid. I think it's stupid that the Warriors would be penalized for keeping their own guy in the same way as if it was anybody else that they were signing. Luxury taxes and second apron and all this stuff. I get why it has to exist, but it should not land the same way with homegrown players who were drafted here. So, in a perfect world, there'd be no penalty for it, and the Warriors could go to Klay and say, you're going to play fewer minutes and have a little bit smaller of a role. We'll still pay you $30 million a year, though. and it has no effect on aprons and penalties and draft picks and all that stuff. That's what should be going on.
That's fantasy land, and unfortunately, that's not. It's not the way it goes. And I think the league has really worked hard to try to make it more fair. Unlike baseball, where you look at any baseball season and you can look at 6 or 8 teams that have really the best chance to have good winning seasons and make the playoffs. And then in the playoffs, it's a bit of a crapshoot, but the NFL does it the best with the hard cap. Here's how much you get to spend. Go spend it. And if you don't spend it all, you can save a little bit of that room for the next year. And it's not that you get to spend any more of it, but you have a little bit more of a cushion going in the next year.